The ruined castle loomed in the distance, its broken stone walls seemingly radiating malice. Sitting on top of the hill, the castle overlooked the entire area, spreading its aura of fear to all those who could see it. Rumour around the ruin had been whispered for years, tales of treasure or piles of gold hidden deep within the dilapidated castle, just waiting for someone brave enough or foolish enough to find. Like all tales about treasure though, there was a reason why no one had claimed it yet: the monster guarding it. Stories were told of a goblin or spirit with a red cap, a large pike, who still protected this castle, even though its foul master had died long ago. The lord of the castle had controlled dark magic and unleashed untold horror and pain on all those around him. The lord had long ago been defeated, leaving behind a single monster to guard his ill-gotten treasure. These are just stories though, and a chance to change their fate made many a treasure hunter brave the wild winds and dark castle to find the gold inside. However, one thing was missing from these tales of brave treasure hunters, and that was if they ever returned. This new party of treasure hunters ignored such worrying thoughts and pushed on until they entered into the outer courtyard of the castle. Once inside, they were met by a still, deadly silence seemingly layering the ruins. The silence was broken when a small misstep caused a rock to fall, unnaturally echoing through the empty walls. As the rattling noise started to dim and the heartbeats of the party started to calm, a huge boulder with the force of a cannonball came out of the darkness, smashing into the unlucky scout. A pool of blood was all that left of the unfortunate party member. But before the rest of the treasure hunters could focus, the guardian of the castle had made itself known. Emerging from the inky blackness, a small, wizened figure with red eyes, large gnarled teeth, and talons on its hands took a step forward. Each step was unnaturally loud due to its iron boots and the pike staff in its taloned hand, looking rusted from age. Its most striking feature, though, was its dark red cap on top of its head, looking almost wet in the light of the torches. Keeping eye contact with the party, the monster slowly took its cap off, dipping it into the pool of blood around. The cap soaked up the blood with unnatural speed, changing to a brighter, blood-red hue. Some tried to kill the monster with sword and axe, but nothing seemed to work. Instead, the monster would just laugh and use its pike staff and talons to mete out a grisly end to those brave enough to try. Soon, all that was left was the priest, who had joined these treasure hunters in hope of cleansing the dreaded castle. The priest, in an act of desperation or piety, held up her holy symbol, putting it between the monster and herself. Trembling words of scripture fell out her mouth, just audible to the priest in the red cap. A snarl ripped across the monster's old, wrinkled, failing face. In an instant, the monster disappeared. The only evidence left behind of its brutal rampage were the strange, bloodless bodies strewn around the castle, and a single, oversized tooth torn from the monster itself. Hi there. Today we are going to be looking into the Redcap, finding out what this monster is, where it came from, and what the old stories say it can do. So, if you're a lover of myths, looking for something to add to your campaign or story, or just curious, then I hope you enjoy. Like all myths and tales of monsters, it is impossible to know when stories of the Redcap started to appear, but from what we know, there have been tales of this monster for almost 1,000 years. Despite being almost a millennium years old, the description of the monster has largely stayed the same. Though tales change over time, the modern description was written in the ballad Lord Solus by J. Lansbury. It's what is most commonly used today, with his description being a short, thick-set old man with long, prominent teeth, skinny fingers armed with talons like eagles, large eyes of fire-red colour, grisly hair streaming down his shoulders, iron boots, a pike staff in his left hand, and a red cap on his head. Older tales hint at a slightly different description, but this is the one most commonly used today. One of the strange things about this description is there doesn't seem to be any definitive reason why it was wearing iron boots. This becomes odder later, but just keep it in mind. Another strange part is the pike staff, as you wouldn't expect a monster who had large razor-sharp talons to need more weapons. Despite these quirks of the Redcap, what it can actually do are much more consistent, and fit with the theme of a malicious being out for blood. And out for blood isn't just an expression either, as the Redcap actually targets the blood of its prey. As well as being a bold fashion choice, the Redcap will always dip its cap into the blood to keep it glistening and crimson. In some tales, this cap is its life force. Only by keeping the hat fed with blood can it survive. In others, the Redcap just likes to stand out from the crowd. Another detail that the older stories have in common is that the Redcap cannot be harmed by mortal men, or at least with mortal weapons. Swords and spears will do nothing to the Redcap at all, apart from putting the unfortunate warrior right next to the monster and its sharp talons and pike staff. But even keeping your distance from the Redcap doesn't help. The Redcap is meant to be extremely strong, and one of its signature moves is to throw a boulder as hard as it can at those who enter its lair, hitting as hard as cannonball. The good news is that Redcap's lairs are easy to spot, as they like to live in ruins and especially like old castles. If they can't be hurt then, how do the stories say to defeat a Redcap? After all, there must be some sort of weakness. The answer to that question is a bit confusing, and to understand it, we'll need to know where the Redcaps come from. Originating in the UK, the first stories of the Redcap can be found in records around the 1200s. Redcap seems to be a local myth at first, being popular in the border areas of Scotland and England. The tale of the red-capped monster, though, was soon spread, and stories of the Redcap have been told throughout the UK and even some places in Europe. In some more recent versions of the Redcap, it is described as some sort of goblin, even affiliating it with the fairy courts in some cases. In some more recent sources, it's even listed the Redcap as a hobgoblin, a classification that means it's more powerful than a normal goblin. While modern fantasy settings use this term hobgoblin, historically this just isn't true, as the prefix hob wasn't meant to show something as more powerful, but that it was good and helpful. Such creatures like brownies or elves, not the pointed ear type, but the thick in the shoes elves, were considered hobgoblins, even if they could get up to no good if you annoyed them. This change was started by, of course, the Christian Church, who didn't like the idea of any creature being considered good or helpful. As such, the Christian Church started a medieval PR campaign of sorts to change the meaning of the word hobgoblin to mean something bad or evil. The Redcap then, with its enjoyment of killing everyone or anyone with blood, definitely doesn't start out as a hobgoblin. And it's even up to debate whether it's connected to the fairy court or if that's even a goblin at all. Another origin of the Redcap is that they are spirits or demons born or let into this world in areas of bloodshed, agony and malice. Battlefields and areas where a lot of blood was shed would have a chance to create a Redcap, which as these stories started around the border of England and Scotland, which in the 10th to 14th centuries were full of skirmishes and battles, checks out. The main story of the Redcap, though, was set in the earliest 14th century, and even has a specific location, Hermitage Castle, which again is on the border of Scotland and England. In the story, the Redcap was a guardian of the Hermitage Castle, and was owned by the wicked William de Solles, the Lord of Hillsdale. He was reported to be the most vile of lords, using his people as cattle, with tales saying he made holes in his servants' shoulders so they could be attached to carts to build the castle even quicker. The Lord Solles was also meant to have dabbled with black magic as well, and was meant to have been an apprentice of the real-life wizard Michael Scott. Both Michael Scott and William Solles were real people, alive in the 14th century. Lord Solles was known as a bad lord even at the time, and even tried to throw a coup of the Scottish monarchy. Michael Scott, on the other hand, was seen as a great man during this day, being an astrologer, astronomer, a general scholar, was famous in its own time for his knowledge and intellect. After Scott's death, though, stories started to spread that Michael Scott was also a wizard, and in the stories of the Redcap, he is commonly the one who summoned or created the Redcap and gifted it to Lord Solles. The Redcap was so malicious and terrifying to Lord Solles, though, that it was kept in an iron box with 3 massive padlocks on, only to be released by the Lord himself when he was in grave danger. The Redcap was used by Lord Solles to normally guard his castle, though, and to grant him the same protection from mortal weapons as the Redcap himself, making any revolt from the peasants he abused almost impossible. The peasants, though, getting understandably angry at their treatment, asked the King of Scotland, Robert the Bruce, if it was okay for them to kill their lord. Once the peasants got the go-ahead from the king, who also did not like Lord Celeste, they figured out a way around Lord Celeste's magical protection, and bundled up the lord in lead and boiled him alive. This somewhat grisly story, though, doesn't mention the death of the Redcap, and in many stories has the Redcap left where it was, with some saying that the monster can still be found in the Hermitage Castle to this day. This isn't the only story of the Redcap, though. There are other stories having it lying in wait in ruins and dark places, just waiting for its prey to appear. These stories were probably earlier versions of the Redcap, with the story of Lord Celeste being later, making the Redcap famous. In these earlier stories, the Redcap is more of a monster which hides in the dark, in dangerous places. These kind of monsters are common in folklore, and are stories told to frighten or to stop children from exploring clearly dangerous ruins or areas. Now that we know the origins of the Redcap then, and what the main stories around it were, we can finally start talking about the confusing weaknesses of the Redcap I mentioned before. In the main stories, he can be chased away by quoting words of scripture or by holding up the crucifix, after which the Redcap would disappear and would leave behind one of its long yellow teeth. If the Redcap was a spirit or demon born from places of bloodshed, this would make sense, as the Redcap would be some sort of evil being that can't stand such holy symbols. However, if the Redcap is some sort of goblin, then the holy power is a bit odd. There are tales of fairies being repelled by the crucifix, but these are somewhat uncommon, and it does seem, at least in my opinion, to be a late addition added by the PR department of the church again. Throughout most stories, though, of goblins and fairies, their weakness is cold iron. What makes this odd then, in the case of the Redcap at least, is their choice of boots and weapon, which are both made out of iron. This is clearly said in the tale and the ballad, and mentioned in other places as well. This oddity makes the Redcap a bit difficult to classify then. Ultimately, it'll be up to the storyteller to decide what is in and what is out, but it is just something to consider. However, the story of the Redcap is one thing and one thing only: that the Redcap is a menace and evil and should not be taken lightly. With its supernatural strength, its immunity to harm, and its malicious desire for fresh blood for its cap, this monster is a terror that will surely make any story it's in better. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. Lastly, if I missed anything out or got anything wrong, please leave a comment and I'll get on it. Thanks again, and I hope you have a good day.